Hey guys, in this video I'm going to explain the publisher module, the PubSub module, and the modules responsible for addition and removal of publishers and subscribers. So yeah, stay tuned. As mentioned in the previous video, we divide immediately invoked function expressions, or IFEs, into four main parts: caching DOM elements used throughout the module, binding event handlers, implementation of the render function to render components on the screen, and user-defined functions, specific to our application. The publisher module is very similar to the subscriber module in both structure and function. The only DOM elements we cache is the publisher list. The corresponding markup containing the mustache code is stored in template. When the publish button is clicked, the send function is invoked. The send function will take the text in the title and content text boxes and send it to the PubSub module to notify the correct subscribers. Since both the publish button and the send function are in the same module, that is, the publisher module, the event handler is established using the delegate function. Pub add and pub remove events are triggered when the publisher is added or removed. That is, when the add or remove button is clicked from another module. Once these events are triggered, the add function or remove function is called accordingly. Since the events are triggered by elements outside the publisher module, in this case the add and remove buttons, and also the corresponding handlers add and remove are present in the publisher module, we use the PubSub module's on function to preserve decoupling. Recall from the last video, the render function is the only function that touches the DOM. We pass the publishers array, which has a list of publishers. The corresponding name and works of each publisher are accessed directly from the mustache template, so there's really no need to explicitly pass them here. On the last line of the function, we render mustache, passing the template and the publisher data. Now, let's take a look at the user-defined functions. The get function retrieves a specific publisher by index. If nothing is specified, then the entire publisher array is returned. The add function is used to add a publisher to the publisher list. The parameter is just the name. This is stored in an object literal and pushed onto the publisher array if it doesn't exist. Since the array changes, the DOM must change as well to add the new publisher. Hence, the render function is also invoked. The remove function is used to remove a publisher from the publisher list by name. If the publisher is present, then it is removed from the list and the DOM changes. So we need to invoke the render function. If, however, the requested publisher is not found, then just move on. The send function takes the click event as parameter when a publisher clicks publish. The selector for the event.target will return the DOM for the clicked publish button, and we cache it in a local variable called currentL. Notice that it is preceded by a dollar symbol to signify that it is a DOM element. Now, we retrieve the publisher DOM, the name, and the contents of the text fields, topic and payload, using closest and find operations. So why do it in this way? Because we don't want to use a number of jQuery selectors due to the processing time required. A publisher's work is an object literal containing their name, the topic of their work, and the payload, which is the content or the message. Now, we extract the list of names from the publisher's array and find the index of this publisher. We then retrieve the list of works that this publisher has published. His works is initialized to an empty array if it is his first work. It is required to create this works array here as it is not defined while creating the publisher. Recall that in the add function, we added publishers by name only. We pushed the work object containing only topic and payload to this publisher's list of works. Since we display the newly published work on the screen, we need to re-render the DOM. So we call the render function. Now we notify the PubSub module of this new work by triggering the notify event. Recall we created this event back in the subscriber module in the previous video. This will trigger the notify function to notify the subscribers following the published topics. And at the end of the IFE, we expose an API. Now that you have a clear picture of how the subscriber and publisher modules work, we'll take a look at the module that facilitates communication between them, that is, the PubSub module. Note that I didn't code this one module myself, just needed the bare-bones structure of the PubSub module. The link to the original source is in the description below. I replaced the emit function with trigger to make it sound more jQuery-like. I think that's the only change I made, but I'll still explain what's going on. We call this object literal events instead of PubSub. There is no significant reason for doing so. To some, events.on, events.off sounds more appropriate than pubsub.add or pubsub.subscribe and pubsub.off or pubsub.unsubscribe. Well, it's your choice. In this module, we have three functions: on, off, and trigger. The on function takes an event name and the corresponding function to execute as its parameters. This function is pushed onto the list of handlers to execute when the event is triggered. The off function also takes an event name and a function as its parameter. This will remove the function from the list of handlers to execute when a particular event is triggered. The trigger function is used to trigger an event which was defined in the on function. Now, this is probably the simplest PubSub module you can construct, but it's good enough for us now. So now I'm going to explain the other two modules. One to add and remove subscribers, and the other to add and remove publishers. Here it's a lot easier to see the four parts of the module in one screen. We cache the DOM for the entire add and remove subscriber module. We bind click event handlers to the add and remove buttons. We then have our favorite render function to change the DOM, and we have our user-defined function. While binding events, notice that there are two buttons, the add and remove button, but there's only one click event handler. So when I click either button, the same op function is executed. I'll get back to that in a sec. The render function usually has something like mustache.render of template and data, but there are no DOM changes that really need to be made at any point of time. The only thing we need to ensure is that once either add or remove button is clicked, we just need to clear the text field. Like I said before, the op function handles both click event add and remove. This is done by caching the button DOM, reading the contents of the text box that has the name of the subscriber. We read the button text and convert it all to lowercase, so the operation will be add if the add button is clicked and remove if the remove button is clicked. Then we trigger either sub add or sub remove event that was created in the subscriber module. The last module, which adds and removes publishers, is exactly the same. I just replace sub with pub everywhere. Okay, so here are some final questions that you may ask about these modules. So for one, why pass jQuery to the IFI if jQuery is already defined globally? The idea here is that you pass jQuery in as the $sign inside the function, making sure that the dollar symbol is indeed jQuery. This is commonly used to protect code that uses dollar symbols, especially when using jQuery along with other libraries that may use dollar symbols. Now for the second question, you may ask, why should you include this little semicolon before your first IFI in a script file? So let's say some other dude wrote a function which accepts a parameter that's not an IFI. That is, without the braces around the function. Now you're this amazing JavaScript programmer who actually knows JavaScript, and you write an IFI that looks something like this. When these two functions are present one after another, the broken function accepts your function as its parameter. In this case, f will be your function. Definitely not what you or the other guy expected. So using a semicolon will ensure that your function and his function are executed separately, as intended. Bet you didn't know that, did ya? Did ya? Did ya? Did ya? Okay, maybe you did. The takeaway from this is that when you combine crap with great, you get more crap. Okay, that was a bad analogy. Well, I think that covers everything. We talked about NPM, the necessity in its installation. We talked about IFIs, the four modules of our markup, and also the PubSub module. The full code is on GitHub. The link is down in the description below. Hope you guys got something useful out of this mini-series. Leave your comments below. I'll read them, don't worry. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos. See ya.